What's up everybody, NFX here with another tutorial. This tutorial is my second beat recipe and I'm going to talk about how to make a Dre style beat. Now, I don't have a big enough ego to tell you this is on Dre's level. Okay, so don't think that's what I'm saying. But what I'm going to try to explain to you are some of the elements that you find in a Dre beat and kind of how they're put together. And then maybe you can take some of those elements and use them yourself. So let's just jump right in and get started. First thing we want to talk about with a Dre style beat is a very simple drum pattern. And in the drum pattern you see on the screen, it's what I call a 4 on the floor type of a pattern, because the kicks hit on the 1 and the 3 and the snares hit on the 2 and the 4, and they're the main focus of the beat. Just a boom, bap type of a beat. Nothing really crazy going on, but it really does set the tone for a Dre West Coast style beat, where it's kind of just laid back and you know, bouncing along. And let's just take a listen to this particular pattern. Now there's a couple of things I've done with regards to the effects on the drums that I want to point out to you. I'm going to bring up the mixer. And in the mixer, we'll take a look at the kick first. And in the kick effects chain, all I really did was I boosted a frequency down here, some low frequency. Without that, the kicks to me sounded a little bit thin. Just a little bit. So you can hear when I add that, it kind of beefs them up a bit. And the way I found that was by just sweeping the dial. And what I mean by that is normally I'll start here in the middle, play the beat, and then sweep down. And I'll do that till I find the area that to me sounds best. So that's what I did with the kick. Now to the snare, I did two things. One is I low cut the low frequency, obviously, and then I added some reverb. And let me just solo the snare for a minute. So that's the snare without a reverb. Now we'll add the reverb. And it's kind of subtle, but once it gets into the mix, I think it adds a little bit of extra to it and helps the snare to sustain a little bit without it sounding like it's a long snare. In other words, it's not like a type of a snare, but it gives it that feeling. The snare itself is actually 2 snares in a layer, and really the only thing I did was I used just some regular snare sounds, and they don't fit on the screen. Let me adjust the screen here. So that's the first snare, and then the second snare, it's actually a short snappy clap sound, and that's just to give it the snappiness to the snare. Hats are just basic hats. There's nothing different there. Just a basic closed hat. And that gives us our basic drum beat. And we're going to use this beat through the whole song. Oh yeah, one more thing is I did add a slight shaker on the right here on the snare hits. Okay, so let's move to the next part of the song. And on the next part, we have the bass line. Now in the bass line, what I did originally is I recorded it using just my standard boo bass. And the boo bass, what I'll do if I want a nice low sound is I'll increase the bass parameter and decrease the mid and the treble. And it's just various degrees, so whatever sounds good to your ear. But you can hear that's got a nice rich bass sound to it. And the bass line goes a little something like this. But then what I wanted to do is I wanted to give it a little bit more of a West Coast flavor. So I added a second sound to play along with it. And it's an albino. Those of you who've seen my tutorials know this is one of my favorites. Let me see if I can get this in here. And you can see the patch name down here. But this particular sound, without the boo bass in it, sounds like this. Okay, so you can hear it's got that synthy wah-ish sound to it that I like. So what I'll do is I'll mix the two together and come up with this. And that's pretty much it. There's nothing really else going on except for maybe you can consider this note here in the bass line. This note up here, it's kind of an accent note, and I threw a little bit of a pitch bend on it to give it a little funky flavor right there. And that's really all there is to that. So let's go to the next part. So the next part shows us kind of a signature Dre thing, and it's basically a constant piano pattern. There is a little break at the beginning of this one, and it's actually this one is two parts. But let's listen to the first part. It's got a slight echo on it, and the second part goes like this. And those will play just basically one after the other. And we'll see how I sequence all that a little bit later. Okay, so there's our piano part. Next we have another Dre style element. And this element, I really don't know what to call it, but I refer to it as the 4 and hit. And the reason why I call it that is because if you're counting the beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and this hit comes on the 4 and, on the and right after the 4. And it sounds like this. It's just a string hit. And then to make that hit, I mixed 3 different sounds. I'm just going to play a single note on the keyboard to give you an idea of the different sounds. This is the first one. This is the second. You can hear it's a very short spiccato hit. This is the third. It's kind of a louder violin sound. But what I've done is instead of just playing, let me bring up a keyboard actually so we can see. Okay, so you can see the keyboard down here so you can see kind of what I'm playing. Instead of just playing a single hit, I'm actually going to be playing a chord, but then I'm also going to be playing it an octave higher. So in this case, I'm in an A minor, which is, but I'm going to play the A minor in 2 different octaves and just make that hit like this. And there's a little bit of reverb on the strings. That's almost a standard for strings nowadays, to put a little bit of reverb on them. Let's see if I can find it. There we go, strings. And all I did was I used the Fruity Reverb. I used a preset called, let's see if we can bring that up. I used a preset called 4 Strings, right there. And then I turned it down to about halfway on the effects chain here. So, because I didn't want it too much. This would have been full. But it carried just a little bit too much, so I want it slight, but enough to hear. So to me, it sounds good that way. Okay, so those are my string hits, my 4-and hits, okay? And let's go to the next element. Okay, so here's the next element. Again, these are some hits, but they're not on the 4-and. They're basically on a, well, let's go look at it. They're on a 1-and. This is a 1 and a 1-and hit, and it basically sounds like. Okay, and again, I played it in several different octaves. In this case, it's just a single note carried up octaves. In other words, it's an A note in 3 different octaves, and then followed by a C note in 3 different octaves. Now, these are not really chords in the normal sense. They're just the same note, just octave, 1 octave up. Okay, so that's my my string hits for the beginning of a measure. Let's see the next element. Okay, here's another element. These are basically string hits as well, only now we're playing them in reverse. We're playing the C and then the A instead of the A and the C. And these are going to be strung together also in a way that's going to hopefully sound good. The next element is a lead-in. Okay, you hear that? That's dun-dun, and that's going to lead in to one of my other parts. It's going to play at the end of a measure. In this case, you see it in the middle, but it's designed to actually play leading up to the beginning of another measure. And then we have my string part, which is a little more filled out. And here we're also playing the octaves of single hit notes. I'll bring that into view so you can see it, what notes we're playing. And it sounds like this. Okay, and these 4 hits coming here towards the end of the 3rd bar, or wherever we're going to put that, probably at the end of the 4th bar maybe. But these 4 hits that you see basically are leading back into the 1st bar. So that's going to be like one of our accent parts. Here we have some pizzicato violins. Again, we're doing a Dre style beat. Dre uses a lot of strings and violins and orchestral type sounds, so that's what we're trying to add here. And you hear these last 3 pizzy hits there. Those kind of go along with the last 4 hits that we just saw in the previous one, but instead of doing all 4, I'm just doing the first 3. Now this pattern is an albino again. This is an albino plugin, and this is a sound. It's an actual sound effect type of a sound, and this is used again as kind of an accent, just to make the beat a little bit more interesting, and it sounds something like this. It's a little bit spacey, but you'll see how it fits in when we play the whole song. The next part is, I'm not sure what to call this, but this is I know what this is. This is the West Coast whistle or West Coast sine wave type of sound. I'll just let you hear what it sounds like. So, I could probably play that an octave higher and it would probably sound good as well. But you know, with any of these beat recipes, I really can't help but bring my own thoughts and flavor into it. Even though I'm attempting to copy a Dre style beat, I'll never get it exact. But you know, these are all parts that you will find in a Dre beat, so take them and go with them. Now, the thing to remember about this particular part is, one, it's played in a higher octave. And not only is it played in a higher octave, but you have to make sure you have your glide or your slide turned on and your time is set correctly. Because if it's too much, you might get something that doesn't fit. See, there my glide is just, it's too much. So we're going to turn it back down to about where it should be. And make sure your voices are one or mono, your number of voices, and your glide is turned on. If you don't have that, you're not going to get the right sound. Check my tutorial on portamento for more information on that. Before we talk about the arrangement, let's just talk about the parts again and how they fit together real quick. I'm going to just play the drums here for a few bars. And then I'm going to add the bass in here so you can hear what they sound like together. Okay, and then the piano part, which, as I told you, it's in two parts. So we have the first part and the second part, and they're just going to alternate like this. Okay. So it's going to play piano part 1, piano part 2, piano part 1, piano part 2. Let's hear that. Okay, then we have our 4 and hit. And that's going to come in on every other bar. And I'm just going to take the piano out so you can kind of highlight where this hit's coming in, and keep your ears open for that. You hear it kind of comes on a syncopated beat. So I'm going to count the beat, and you're going to hear it's going to be that 4 and I don't know why he does that a lot, and a lot of people have copied that as well, but it sounds kind of nice. So let me just count it off for you so you can hear what I mean by the 4 and. When you hear me say 4 and, on that and is when that hit's going to go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, the first time around I didn't play it. You know, right here you can see I didn't play it in this bar, but on the second bar I did, and you heard it on the 4 and. So that's why I call it the 4 and. So let's put the piano parts back in as we build up our song here. Okay, now we have the string hits. The string hits, that part. Okay, and that's going to accentuate the beginning of the song, and we're going to have it accentuate every other bar as well. Okay, so it's going to sound like this. Okay, so you can see how the parts kind of start fitting together, and we have the pizzicato and the synth and all that, and you're gonna see my somewhat final version of it, which I'm going to slide into view here, and we're going to bring it over. Okay, so you can see for the most part we're building off of like this much of the song. Okay, so you can see these 4 bars here. They kind of repeat over and over and over almost through the whole song. And we've added a little bit of variation here and there. Our pizzi strings come in here on the 9th bar and play all the way to the 17th bar, and we have our synth effects sound playing here on the 11th bar, and then again in the chorus And you can see up here I've kind of delineated what's what. So the verse happens all this, and the chorus happens for the next 8, and then it's going to repeat. So that's all our parts. You heard how most of them fit together. Let's hear how the whole thing works. And as I play it, I'm going to go ahead and try to announce, just so you don't forget, where these other sounds that we didn't preview before are going to come in. The Pitsy sound, the Synth FX sound, and the West Coast sign part. That's going to be in our chorus. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit play and hear it all. Okay, our Pitsy's coming up. Our synth effects. Okay, here comes our West Coast whistle. We hit the verse again. So there you have it, Dr. Dre style beat recipe. And let me just stress again, this is only parts of what Dre can do and what Dre does. Between him and Timbo, probably the two best producers out there ever of all time when it comes to hip-hop music. I mean, like 1 and 2, and you can argue, but for me, Dre's number 1. Anyway, I don't think I'll ever do him true justice, but hopefully I've done enough justice for you to learn about the different parts and how to fit them together, and what sounds to choose, etc., etc. And this is NFX saying, I will catch you guys in the next tutorial.